Happy Pride, everyone. My name is Dwayne Williams. I am the Director of Community Engagement for Mobilizing Our Brothers Initiative. Listen, y'all have been so good to us this month, and we want to continue to keep you guys engaged and encourage you all to continue to check out the content that we're going to be rolling out. In addition to MOBI Talks, we also have MOBI Fest is still posted. So if you didn't get a chance to see it or you just want to view it again, go to www.mobifest.live. Again, it's www.mobifest.live. There's some great artists, Duran Bernard, Brian, 7D, and I'm not going to say anyone's names because if you didn't see it, you got to go check it out now and find out for yourself. This particular conversation, these conversations rather, I'm excited to introduce you to. This is our community chat corner, right? So we're going to be having some really interesting conversations over the next few months with some thought leaders, influencers, and more importantly, community, and some professionals also on different subjects. This first conversation that we're having will be hosted by Erick Nunez and Justyn Smith. They're going to be talking all things mental health. So what do we do to protect ourselves? And also just a few of the behind the scenes things that take place in their profession that we need to be cognizant of. So listen, if you have an idea for a community chat or if you want to join the conversation in any way, feel free to email us at info@mobi-nyc.com. Again, it's info@mobi-nyc.com. And again, welcome to Community Chat Corner. I'm going to be checking back with y'all with some dope topics, but I hope you enjoy this one. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Erick Nunez. I am an associate clinical social worker here in Inglewood, California. I am a private practice therapist for a small private practice called SoCal Therapy, and I'm excited about our conversation.
Hello everyone, I'm Justyn Smith. I'm a licensed professional counselor here in Houston, Texas. Originally from Ohio, but been in Houston 6 years, and I am a therapist for a university here in Houston, an adjunct professor, and then also have my private practice here in Houston as well. Well, I think mental health is important because it's us managing our lives. The thing that I tell clients when they call me, especially for private practice, is they're calling because they have stressors, they have things going on in their lives, and they just feel like they need a place to get it out. And a lot of them always ask, is this normal? Is it do I need this? And I always normalize that just being a basic adult these days is stressful. Going to work and paying taxes, you need therapy.
Hello. Adulting alone is stressful.
Adulting, especially because you really get bamboozled. So I get both sides of the spectrum. So working at a college setting, I get the 18-year-olds who are like, what is this? What is this adulting thing? And then a lot of times my private practice are usually 30 to 40-year-olds who are still what is this? I'm still trying to figure it out and adjust. And a lot of my private practice are gay Black men in Texas. A lot of them are dating or relationships or friendships or coming to terms with sexuality. Some of them are just coming out even in later stages in life. So kind of maneuvering those things. So mental health is our life. That's our everyday management of what we're going through.
Yeah, I agree. I think mental health, to me, the reason why I got into this work was just for maintenance for myself, right? It's how do I maintain a positive mindset? How do I allow myself to create healthy coping mechanisms with the life stressors? And I think that's something that's so important that we fail to realize is that we have choices. And sometimes we need that validation from an external factor to tell us that we have choices. And I think that's what therapy is about, is having that validation to have someone else tell you that you are allowed to create whatever choice you want, and also the standards around your own happiness. And I think that's really important within mental health. We tend to believe that, one, we're Black, so we have a target on our back, right? We're a Black male in society, that's an extra target, right? And then you throw on the gay thing, and it's okay, I have all these targets on my back. How do I manage all this? And then within that mindset, we create defenses and think that sometimes people are coming at us when they're just trying to show us love. So one is identity that I see a lot. And I want to say yes, relationships, right? Because I think gay men are still trying to figure out their relationships with themselves and how to strengthening that relationship, right? How can I have you show me love, but I don't know how to show love to myself?
Uh, Listen, that I tell my clients all the time about that quote from RuPaul, like, how can you love anybody else if you can't love yourself?
Mhm.
And it's a lot to unpack there because a lot of times we didn't get to grow up as our true selves. So we're having to kind of get through all these different layers that we sometimes put on to protect ourselves, to get through whatever environment we were in. So even like unpacking masculinity or stereotypes, the expectations of what it means to be a man, a gay Black man, in society and in the environment that you're in. So it's definitely processing just even the thoughts around your identity and those ideas. It may take some time to find a fit as well. That's okay if you go to a therapist, you don't really feel a connection after a couple sessions. If it's important to you that that person has your identity, I know that has been a big topic, even like on Insecure with Molly talking about, you know, her therapist. I think we're seeing more people of color in the role of therapists too, and different like directories out there kind of really illuminating like we are out here. So I think that's one thing to realize, like, is that important for that person to identify as you? It's one of the joys of my career to be my identity as a gay Black man. And I get those emails like, I was looking for a gay Black man. And I saw your profile. And I'm like so excited.
Right.
So I definitely, think about the identity of your therapist and their perspective and kind of what they offer in their work. But also be open to, it may not be perfect the first time you have the session. I mean, this is a new experience. So also be open to what it can be after a couple sessions. But I think it's just important to have that space. Like I said, just managing adulthood, we need to process everything that's going on.
Yeah, I tell my friends the same thing, and just like my peers in general, I say finding a therapist and it's like dating. Finding someone who meshes well with you. But that's so important. And I'll disclose a story. When I was in therapy years ago in New York City, I had a white female therapist. She was in her
Okay.
60s. And, as a social worker and getting out of grad school, I knew that I had to find a therapist that looked like me just to be able to understand my dialect and some of my issues. But I was like, oh, I really want someone outside of my race so that, they could see an outsider looking in and give me a different perspective. I was wrong. Okay. Because when I had to explain what a fuckboy was to my therapist, that's when I knew that my therapist was not for me.
Oh,
right.
no,
So,
yeah.
so I try to tell people, find a therapist that's going to understand your language, understand certain situations, right? Yes, you're going to have to explain yourself and explain certain situations, but you don't have to explain it to a certain detail because, someone of color may or may not understand and get you. So I think that's important.
Well, what I've seen is people, of course, that stigma of like, I'm not crazy. Like, I'm not crazy. I don't need a therapist. So that's one of the stigmas. The other one is just people of color sometimes, because mental health was seen as such a luxury, that they feel like they have to be in a very hard crisis to go to therapy, that you have to be like just a bottom of the barrel, like nowhere else to turn to even consider going to therapy. So that's another stigma of it. Another stigma I think that people are afraid of is that they get like judgment from their therapist, that they're worried of what their therapist will think of them. So those are kind of three biggies that I hear a lot about around going to a therapist and talking to someone, in that realm. How about you?
Yeah. I for sure think that some people think that they have to hit rock bottom for them to seek treatment without realizing that if you are in, getting mental health treatment, that's being seen as prevention as well, preventing you from reaching your rock bottom. How can we work out that aspect? Another thing too, I think is cultural background, right? Within the Black community, right? When shit hits the fan, we say we're gonna pray or drink some milk.
Yeah. Not drink milk.
In my Puerto Rican and Black home, my grandmother's like, it's okay, baby, just drink some milk. You'll be all right. You'll be fine.
Was it cold milk or warm milk?
No, it's warm milk. Warm milk. There's so much trauma within communities of color, and that alone should be motivation to go to therapy and process that trauma, right? We see brown and black folks being killed almost every day on the news, right? We're just dealing with trauma within our own community, especially as gay men. We're also dealing with rejection and non-acceptance and all these other factors that are challenging towards our identity. And I think that these are all the reasons why people should go to therapy, but for some reason there is still this hardcore stigma around it.
I think something that is not as seen as much are the impacts of this like vicarious trauma that we're like going through as a community of seeing these killings. It's like, no, it's not trauma in the sense of we're like a soldier, but literally we are seeing people be killed in the streets over the last couple of years. It's just like relentless of us having these images. And I think people don't realize the impact that it has on them, and they may not even like put it together. Even like I remember specifically a client I had in private practice after the storming the Capitol that week. I mean, clients were going through it and they didn't really know why. But I would always bring it back to it's a dumpster fire right now going on in our country. The Capitol was stormed. Like, this is not normal. This is not okay. And so those types of things, when it gets to safety and stability, that can shake us and that can stir up emotions, and we start taking it out on our partners, on our friends, in our work. And so things are different for us. So being able to recognize, I need to process those emotions that are going on, even though it may not be directly impacting me, but that secondary trauma can be real.
It's so important that you mentioned the processing part, is because when we don't process it, we keep everything up here, and everything up here makes sense to us, right? When we're having conversations with ourselves, myself is saying, yes, girl, you're right. This is correct.
You got it.
Right? But when I start saying things out loud, I'm like, wait a minute, why am I thinking this way? Why am I perceiving things this way? So I think it's important for us to release, that information from our minds, where it's a comfortable place somewhere else to challenge the thought.
Definitely. I'll say it's one thing, and have things circling around in your mind. It's another thing to have that therapist across from you. You're having to like make it make sense in your mind to get it to come out, and then you start saying it. You be like, oh dang, I maybe was wrong. Maybe I need to take a step back. Let's reflect on that a little bit. Where did that come from? Or why is that a theme in my relationships that keep coming up in different areas of my life? So it's another thing to, really talk to someone else about those thoughts.
How I like to explain inner child work is that we come into this world as an empty manual, right? I came into this world as an empty manual. And through my childhood development, through my experiences, through my upbringing, and through what I, witnessed in my environment, I wrote within this manual my core beliefs, my core values, my perception, the perception of the world, my love, everything, right? That manual gets then passed up to my adulthood. And in my adulthood, I'm like, okay, how am I going to live? But we have to come to a place to realize that within this manual was created in a time where you had no control and no power. So there's a lot of shit in this manual that needs to be unlearned, right? Yeah. So my younger self, when I think of my younger self, though, I think about that little boy who was questioning his sexuality, questioning his if he was lovable, questioning if he was worthy. Some of those characteristics show up in my adulthood, and I wasn't able to realize that unless I did therapy. So I often think about all the little queer boys out there and the issues that they're dealing with. If they don't get into therapy or they don't process those feelings out loud or with someone in their adulthood, they're going to show up a certain type of way.
Yeah, especially that manual, because that manual was created in a heteronormative society where you didn't even know the options or the ideas. And people talk about queer kids coming out younger and younger, but that's because we have more visibility these days. It's kind of like you're on a path. If you only have one path to choose from, you're going to keep going down that path. But now these kids, they look to the left. Oh, it's a queer path over there. Oh, maybe I'll fit with that. So I think unpacking those things that you talk about, that manual, is kind of even like trying to reflect, like, this heteronormative standard, how has that impacted how I made my definitions of who I am and what I have experienced? So a lot of, gay men, we get kind of cheated because we don't get that adolescent dating when we're middle school, high school, to kind of have those relationships and mess ups and those early broken hearts and things like that. And so a lot of times you're 30 years old, like having a 15-year-old experience because you didn't get it. You're like,
exactly.
I think I like him. I think, does he like me? I think, I don't know.
Exactly.
Well, definitely talk therapy is my primary source of treatment with clients. And even me being a therapist for 8 years, I think I have brought myself and my identity to, these theories and methods that were taught so much in school that were created by straight white men. I mean, just most of them CBT, person-centered, all these things about straight white men. And so, for me, I think as I got through my training and my years of experience, I think I've just made it more gay and more gay and more gay as I got, and my identity shines through that training. So I think the treatment that I really provide to my clients, it's a mix of CBT. There could be some cognitive behavioral, especially a lot of times when people are dealing with anxiety and depression, even identifying anxiety and depression. So I think a lot of times in people of color, we don't really give it that name of anxiety and depression. So it may just be like, I know, like my grandma would say, my pressure is high. Like, my pressure is high. But that could be worry, that could be stress. And we can have seen how that mental health can cross over to physical health so much, and impact things such as blood pressure, or cholesterol, or things in our digestive, in our stomachs, and just all these things that cross over into physical health. So I think a lot of my career have done the more traditional things. My training experience has been like hospitals and private practice, more later in the career, but a lot of that training was so traditional, of that talk therapy.
I do use, the traditional stuff, CBT, cognitive behavioral therapy. I often think we see what your thought patterns are, and we can see how they're associated to your behaviors. And we could change your thought patterns, and that means we could change behaviors. But then, like you say, right, these focuses or tradition methods when it comes to treatment, they were created by cis white men, and some of them may not fit you as a Black gay man. So I'm aware of that. So I know that I have to switch some things up to make the treatment suitable for you. So I always tell people, journaling is very important. Right. Even though if you don't like to write, you could do a video blog and make that your journal, but just getting your thoughts out on paper, making them tangible, making them physical in your hand. That's important to me. Meditation. People don't like to meditate. Right. It was a challenge for me in the beginning at first too, but how can you become one with your body if you're not providing moments for you to just solely think about your body and be present with your body? And I think that's extremely important. I think for me is I want to jump on, start with the topic of pleasure. With May being Mental Health Awareness Month, it's also Masturbation Month. So I think that
Eminem,
Eminem, right? It's funny because when clients come in and they're all like, I had a really long week, always my first question is, did you masturbate?